I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to make sense of the mess my life has become. My wife, Emily, and I had a pretty decent marriage for the most part. Good job, 2 kids, a nice house in the suburbs. We weren't perfect, but I genuinely thought we were happy. That was until I started noticing little things that didn't add up. Minor stuff at first, forgotten birthdays, her texts ringing through without her answering, a strange distance in her eyes when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Nothing concrete, just enough to make me suspicious. Then came the oddities with our family's memories, or at least, what I thought was our shared history. Emily has always been obsessed with her social media and her personal projects, but lately she was acting even more secretive than usual. She'd spend hours on her phone, and whenever I'd ask her about her day, she'd brush me off with a sneer, calling me paranoid or insecure. I chalked it up to stress, busy work, the usual stuff, but I kept feeling that something was off. One night, I decided to peek into her phone. When she was asleep, more out of instinct than actual suspicion. I didn't think I'd find anything. I've never been the jealous type, but I knew enough to check. That's when I saw it, text messages, photos, and emails that didn't make sense. There was a guy named Jake who kept popping up. They'd talk about preserving memories, but it was more than that. His job was to handle our family's experiential crystal storage, an advanced system we'd invested in, meant to keep our memories, videos, and even emotional moments safe and accessible. But the messages with this Jake were intimate, flirty, suggestive, sometimes downright dirty. I felt my stomach drop. It wasn't just work talk, it was about meeting up, sharing special moments, and a lot of talk about sex. I couldn't believe it. Emily had been lying to me about everything, and now I was staring at proof that she'd been cheating, right under my nose, with someone claiming to be a family memories expert. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that she was actively editing our shared past without my permission, selectively emphasizing moments without me, leaving out the parts where I was supposed to be there and minimizing my role in our milestone events. It was as if the record of our life was being rewritten and I wasn't even aware. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling numb. My mind was racing. How long had this gone on? Was I blind to all her lies? I didn't sleep that night. All I could think about was how she had manipulated our memories, how she was erasing parts of our life for her own pleasure, and how I'd been so blind. It was a gut punch more than just cheating. It was a complete betrayal of everything I believed in. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't ready yet. I just kept staring at that phone, trying to process what I'd just seen, wondering how she could lie so effortlessly about everything, even her own memories. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My head was pounding and my stomach was in knots. I kept replaying the images from the night before, her messages with Jake, the pictures, the guilt I felt for invading her privacy, but also the anger that she had been so reckless. With our life, our memories, it wasn't just about the affair. It was about the fact that she had been actively manipulating the record of our shared moments. That made everything so much worse. She had lied about everything, even the experiences we'd shared, pretending they were real when, in fact, she was editing them, cherry-picking what suited her narrative. I knew I couldn't just ignore this. I needed to get answers, and I needed to do it sooner rather than later. I decided to confront her that same day. I wanted her to see how serious I was. I knew I had to get her to admit it fully. No more bullshit, no more lies. I waited until she came home from her work meeting, which I now suspected was just a cover story for her secret meetings with Jake. When she walked in, she looked casual, like she didn't have a care in the world. She's always been the bitchy type, demanding, dismissive, and quick with a lie, so I knew better than to expect honesty from her. I kept my cool, but inside I was boiling. I asked flat out, "Who is Jake, and what the hell is going on with our memories?" She smirked, trying to brush it off. "What are you talking about? You're being paranoid again. I don't know any Jake. Maybe you saw the wrong messages." Her voice was sharp, defensive. She was trying to deny everything, but her eyes gave her away, guilty, anxious, and defensive all at once. She was clearly lying, and I saw through her like glass. I pulled out my phone, showing her what I'd found. Her face flickered with that irritating smirk she always wears when she's trying to manipulate or dismiss a situation. "That's not what it looks like," she said, shrugging. "Those messages are nothing, just a coworker, someone I met at the conference. You're overthinking it, you always do." But I wasn't stupid. I knew better. I had proof, screenshots, timestamps, everything. And her excuses, they sounded hollow. I told her I knew about the affair, about Jake, and about how she'd been editing our memories, leaving me out of the picture. Her response was to get even more bitchy, snapping at me, calling me insecure, trying to shift the blame onto me for trust issues she never had before. I could see her trying to gaslight me, but the evidence was right there. And I felt a strange mix of rage, heartbreak, and disgust. How could she lie so effortlessly, mess with our past, and cheat on me at the same time? It was like my entire world was crashing down. I wanted to yell, to scream, to tell her how much she'd hurt me, how this betrayal felt like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. But I held back. I knew I needed to stay calm, even if inside I was burning up with fury. After that confrontation, she stormed out, claiming she was done playing these games, whatever that meant. I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The woman I loved, my wife, had been lying to me for months, manipulating our memories and sneaking around with a guy who was supposed to be handling our family's precious moments. All I could think about was how she'd erased chunks of our life, how she turned our shared history into a lie. And I knew this was just the beginning of something much darker. That night was hell. I couldn't sleep, of course. My mind kept circling back to everything I'd discovered. Her lies, her betrayal, the way she'd been editing our memories like some twisted director. I kept wondering what else she'd been hiding. Had she already erased some of the milestones I was supposed to cherish? Were there moments I'd never see again because she had deliberately cut me out? I decided I needed leverage, something more concrete, so I started digging deeper into the data archives of our family's experiential crystal storage system. It's a pretty advanced setup, more than just a backup. It's supposed to be our family's digital vault, preserving moments in high def, with metadata and timestamps. I thought maybe I'd find more clues, more proof, or even some explanation she might give if I confronted her again. What I found was shocking. The system had been tampered with, subtle edits, selective emphasis on certain moments, and more disturbingly, entire chunks of our life that seemed to be missing. For example, big milestones like our anniversary, the birth of our son, the day we bought the house, all had been edited. The timestamps had been altered, like someone was carefully trying to erase me from the record. I realized she wasn't just cheating on me. She was rewriting our entire history. It was like she was trying to control the narrative, to make herself the hero of our story, even if it meant erasing any evidence of my presence. It made me feel sick, like I'd been living in a lie the entire time. I knew this was going to be the ultimate betrayal, if I wasn't already feeling it. I needed to get her to see it too, but I wasn't ready to confront her again just yet. Instead, I wanted her to see that I had evidence, hard, unchangeable proof that the record of our life had been deliberately manipulated. I spent the next few hours compiling everything into a report, highlighting the discrepancies, the edits, and the missing moments. It was meticulous work, and I made sure to back it up securely. When I finally finished, I felt a strange mixture of dread and resolve. The next day, I confronted her again, this time with everything in hand. She was still insisting she had nothing to hide, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But when I laid out the evidence, screenshots, timestamps, the missing milestones, her face twisted into a mask of anger and contempt. She snapped at me, saying I was crazy, that I was reading into things, and that I was overreacting. But I was. I knew exactly what I was seeing. This wasn't some innocent mistake or technical glitch. Someone, her, I suspected, had been deliberately editing our memories, our history, for her own selfish reasons. I felt my blood boil. How could she do this? How could she erase all those moments we shared, moments I thought were etched into our lives forever? She finally lost her temper and spat. "You're such a control freak. You think everything has to be perfect, but I'm tired of your accusations. Maybe if you paid more attention, you'd see what's real." That was her way, to dismiss everything, blame me, pretend she was the victim. But I saw through her. I saw that she was trying to hide something even bigger. I knew then that her betrayal wasn't just about Jake or sex. It was about rewriting our entire story to suit her narrative. At that moment, I felt a mixture of disgust and heartbreak. I'd always thought she was a strong, independent woman, but this was just manipulation on a scale I hadn't imagined. I didn't know what my next move was yet, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. The foundation of our marriage had been shattered, and I had the evidence to prove it. The question was what I was going to do about it, and whether I could ever look at her the same way again. The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't focus on work, on anything really. My mind kept circling back to her lies, the erased memories, and the betrayal that felt like a punch to the gut every time I thought about it. I was exhausted emotionally, but I knew I had to confront her again, this time with a plan in mind. I needed her to face the full extent of what I'd uncovered, to see that I wasn't just some paranoid husband. This was real, and it was devastating. I decided to set a trap. I arranged to be home when she came back from her supposed meeting. But this time, I had my phone recording everything, her reactions, her words, her lies. I wanted her to see that I knew she was hiding something, that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I was ready for whatever she threw at me, anger, denial, even accusations. She arrived that evening with her usual bitchy attitude, tossing her hair and pretending to be the innocent victim. I kept calm, playing the part of the hurt husband who had finally had enough. I laid out all my evidence again, everything from the edited timestamps to the missing milestones, to the explicit messages with Jake. I watched her face flicker with irritation, then anger. She tried to deny everything, claiming I was crazy, that I was paranoid, that I was accusing her of something stupid. But I kept pushing. I told her that I had the recordings, the backups, the timestamps, proof she couldn't deny. That's when she snapped. Her voice changed, becoming sharply defensive, almost frantic. She started throwing blame at me, saying I was psycho, that I was projecting, that it was all in my head. But I could see through her lies now. I could see her real face. Bitchy, manipulative, trying to control the situation. That's when she said something I didn't expect. She accused me of being insecure, of not trusting her, of ruining everything just because I was jealous. That stung. I realized her entire game was about control, controlling the narrative, editing our memories, manipulating me into thinking I was the crazy one. She kept insisting she hadn't cheated, that she'd never do something so stupid, but I knew better. The evidence was irrefutable. I told her she needed to leave. I was done listening to her lies. I told her that her manipulations, her rewriting of our story had crossed a line. That she had betrayed not just me but our entire family. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she spat that I was overreacting, that I was just insecure. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the cold reality of what she'd done. That night, I stayed up late, staring at the recordings, the screenshots, everything I'd gathered. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, but I knew I couldn't keep living in this lie. My trust was shattered, and I felt more betrayed than I ever had in my life. The woman I married, the mother of my children, had been erasing parts of our life, our history, so she could keep her secrets, and I was the fool who never saw it coming. I started thinking about the future. Do I fight for this marriage? Do I try to get her to see the damage she's done and maybe rebuild what's broken? Or do I walk away, knowing I'll never get those memories back, never see our moments the same way again? Honestly, I didn't have an answer yet. All I knew was I'd never let someone manipulate my life and memories like that without consequences. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have ever imagined. The following days were a nightmare. I kept replaying everything, trying to piece together how I missed so many signs, how I was so blind to her manipulations. Honestly, I felt like a damn fool. All those moments I thought we shared, her smiles, our milestones, were just carefully crafted illusions. She'd edited or erased them, replacing parts I should have been proud of with her own version, one where I didn't exist. That realization hit me harder than anything else. I started to look into the details of the storage system we used, something called experiential crystal storage, a high-tech way to preserve memories in a digital vault. It's supposed to be secure, tamper-proof, and unchangeable record of our life. But I found evidence that she'd been hacking into it, manipulating the data, editing timestamps, even removing certain events entirely. I couldn't believe the extent. She'd been rewriting our history, literally deleting the moments I thought defined us. All those family videos, photos, and milestones, some gone, some altered to fit her narrative. This was the moment I realized she wasn't just cheating. She was trying to control the entire story of us. The woman I married was erasing my presence from our shared past, rewriting it to suit her needs. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and utter disgust. How could she do this? How could she be so selfish? How could she manipulate our memories like some twisted storyteller? It was one thing to cheat physically, another to cheat on the very fabric of our shared life. I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with everything laid out in the most undeniable way possible. I set up a meeting, an intense, no-holds-barred confrontation. When she arrived, I met her with a calm that was almost terrifying. I told her. I knew about the data manipulation, the edits, the deletions. I laid out the evidence, the timestamps, the missing milestones, the altered videos. Her face drained of color and she tried to deny everything, but she knew she'd been caught. She started with her usual lies, saying it was a mistake, that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just trying to protect her secrets. She said the affair with Jake was just sex, that it didn't mean anything, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The fact that she'd gone to such lengths to rewrite our history, to erase my role, told me everything I needed to know. This was about control, about her wanting to be the sole author of our story. I told her I was done being manipulated, that I saw through her lies and I wasn't going to let her destroy what little trust we had left. I told her she had betrayed not just me but everything we built together. Her reaction, she snapped. She called me insecure, crazy, and accused me of destroying her life with these accusations. She was trying to turn things around, make me feel guilty for confronting her, but I saw right through that too. The worst part isn't even the affair or the manipulation. It's the realization that she's willing to rewrite our entire history to serve her ego, to erase the moments where I was supposed to be proud, to hide her cheating. I watched her blow up, trying to claw her way out of the mess she created, but I knew I couldn't unsee what I now understood. I knew I had to decide. Do I fight for this marriage or walk away and let her continue to erase me from our life? I told her she needed to leave, not just for tonight but for good. I couldn't keep living with someone who would manipulate our memories, who would betray me so thoroughly. She screamed at me, called me a controlling asshole, accused me of destroying her life. But I didn't care anymore. I was tired of her lies, tired of being the fool who believed she was different. The marriage was over in my eyes. The only thing left was to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move forward. I knew I needed to get help, maybe therapy, maybe just time. But I also knew I had to protect what little was left of my sanity. I couldn't let her continue to rewrite our story, erasing the parts that mattered most. All I could think about now was how betrayed I felt by her, by the woman I trusted, by the memories I thought were real. And more than anything, I wanted to move past this, but I knew the scars would stay with me forever. In the days that followed, I did everything I could to detach myself from the chaos she left behind. I moved my things out of the house, not because I wanted to abandon everything, but because I couldn't stand living in a space that had been tainted by her lies and manipulations. I felt like I was leaving behind a life I'd loved, one built on trust and shared memories, but also freeing myself from a woman who had become a stranger, someone who had erased not only my presence but the very essence of what we once had. I started therapy, partly to process the pain, partly to understand how I missed all the signs, how I let her control our story for so long. It was a slow, painful process, but I knew I had to face the reality. The woman I had loved was gone, replaced by someone who valued her secrets and her ego more than our marriage or our family. Looking back, I realized that betrayal isn't just about the affair or the lies. It's about the erosion of trust, the loss of innocence, and the brutal wake-up call that sometimes the person you think you know most is hiding a much darker side. The manipulating of our memories was her way of rewriting history, an act so insidious that it took me months to fully grasp just how deep the deception ran. The most important lesson I learned is that honesty is the foundation of any real relationship. Without it, everything crumbles. I was blindsided because I believed in the stories, in the milestones, in the memories we created. But she had been editing those stories in secret, erasing my role, minimizing my importance, and trying to craft her own version of our life. Now, I'm rebuilding myself, piece by piece. I don't know what the future holds for me or for the kids, but I know I have to prioritize my mental health and my integrity. I refuse to be manipulated again, to be a victim of someone's selfish game. If anything, her betrayal taught me to be more cautious, more aware, and more skeptical of what I see and hear. To anyone who might be going through something similar, trust your instincts. Dig deep, don't settle for the surface. And if you find that someone you love is manipulating your memories, your feelings, your entire shared history, don't be afraid to walk away. Because in the end, your truth matters more than anyone's lies. Your memories, your life, your story, those are yours to control. Don't let anyone else edit or erase them.